Once Donald Trump is gone, it's the end of MAGA. I don't know if it's the end of that sort of attitude. I mean, the MAGA is the closest thing to the modern version of a Nazi party. This is America's version. It's the closest thing without the Holocaust and all that stuff. That sort of mindset. That's what MAGA is, because most intelligent people or logical people, when they get new information, and if that information is negative or not factual, then they change their minds when they go, oh, well, I wish I had known better. And now that I have this information, then I can readjust. No matter what no matter how many facts and how much information you give them about this presidency, about the policies, they don't change their minds, because they're really not voting for the price of eggs. They're voting for white supremacy. They're voting for power. They're voting to have a preeminent voice. They're afraid of, they've been co-opted by many people in the Republican Party and Donald Trump to think that their failures are due to something else, the other, the black person, the woman, the Latino, the immigrant, the migrant. That person is taking your job. That person is the reason that you don't have the financial or career success that you think that you should have. It's because of them. We want to take our country back. That's what MAGA is.
This is the primal scream of a dying regime. Pray for our enemies, because we're going medieval on these people. You're just not got a free shot on all these networks lying about the people. The people have had a belly full of it. I know you don't like hearing that. I know you try to do everything in the world to stop that, but you're not going to stop it. It's going to happen.
And where do people like that go to share the big lie? MAGA media. I wish in my soul, I wish that any of these people had a conscience.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, Monday, 20 July, year of Lord 2026. What about a week you kick off? You got Joe Scarborough, David Ignatius, and Don Lemon. Don Lemon is putting up a trial balloon. Don Lemon is talking to the media behind the scenes. It's leaked a little bit. He's thinking of running for president in 2028, the hope and the change candidate. You just heard it right there. You're white supremacists. You just blame the other. He left out, I think he left out a couple of categories. I don't know why, but he left out some categories. There's Don Lemon, playing the victim again. So, but you're Nazis. In fact, MAGA is the beginning of the American Nazi Party, or is the new American Nazi Party, I guess. Let's go, Garland. We got Garland back up. If we hold the stream with him. Okay, we're not going to get to Garland then. So Garland Favorito, what he sent out from Voter GA is maybe we try it one more time. Just have him call in by phone. We'll do some producing here. They're calling it treason, but here. Look, it's obviously treason in the in what went on. President Trump, that was a profile of courage. You don't think he has the deep state looking at every way to remove him, because it clearly was a deep state plot with big tech and money from the outside, foreign money, the source money like that. Zuckerberg put in $500 million. Of course, he's welcomed at the White House. Some things don't compute. And the Chinese Communist Party, of course, others, Russia, and tried to do what they do, but there was a nothing burger. I think it was not Brennan, but one of Hayden, I think, wrote a book that said it was $100,000 worth of Facebook ads or some ridiculous. The entire Russian influence was an absolute joke. In Iran, there's other people, but it's obvious that the Chinese Communist Party, and the question gets to be, are we still going to have this summit at the end of September? I mean, there should be some penalties. I'm going to get into all that, but somebody's going to join us in a moment. We'll try Garland. Garland, 3 strikes, you're out, so you're up for your it's no balls and 2 strikes. Talk to me. Why would Voter GA, and you guys are normally pretty even-handed, why would you put out a press release that uses the T word? It starts talking about treason, sir.
Yeah. Don't say the T word on the air. It was very frustrating. You know, we had seen 3 different networks not cover the speech. 2 of them cut the speech, and then they started distorting it with fact checks and talking head commentary. And, you know, enough is enough. I mean, I think the 3 takeaway points from that speech on Thursday night were, number one, the president has been right on elections all along. And number 2, the government officials have covered it up. The intelligence community in particular have covered up the not only the Chinese interference, but election fraud as well. And then number 3, the news media has been their co-conspirators in this whole thing. It's driving me really crazy. It's driving our people.
Okay, but hang on,
crazy.
Hang on. You're 100% correct on all 3 of those. Okay, you're 100% correct on all 3 of those. However, I notice and this is in the South, my beloved South. In North Carolina, I got a guy that's running well behind Cooper. He can't get traction. You talk to anybody in North Carolina, any of the grassroots, and they said the guy does not respond to the grassroots. He doesn't, he's got commercials. He's in like a flannel shirt, driving around in a pickup truck, talking about all the great things he's going to do. He will not embrace this. He has a event the day after President Trump's historic speech, and he doesn't mention it. Not one mention. In fact, the Washington Post notes he has a whole event and avoids the topic. Now, let's go to the state of Georgia, another great southern state. In the state of Georgia, you're fighting the good fight. All the folks have been fighting in Fulton County for years, facing bankruptcy, imprisonment, felony charges, destruction of their lives, are fighting hard. But I notice crickets from the Georgia Republican establishment. In fact, I don't hear any backup of President Trump coming from the Georgia Republican, Kemp and that clique. And really, Kemp is just the Bush junta set up in Georgia. I don't notice anything of them at all. So as bad as this is, and the treason charges against the media and the deep state and all that, where in the hell is the Republican establishment in this, particularly in the most MAGA of areas, the South of the United States, sir?
Well, great question, Steve. Not being a Republican, I don't think I can answer that, but I think they're all cowards, and they're waiting to see how the whole thing plays out. And I don't think they're familiar with the intelligence. You and I and so many others have been familiar with a lot of the things that the president talked about because they've been reported before, and they just have not been having the right sources of news. And so I guess the issue that we really have here is that this media they have withheld critical election security news, denied intelligence findings, attacked the president for informing the voters, and they're defending the Chinese Communist government. That's just it's treason, and it's a threat to our national security.
Okay, for the Save America Act, because there's all types of things, and folks on the legislative side in the White House are working around the clock. They're really trying to figure out a way to thread the needles, because you have so many. All the Democrats are 100% opposed to anything on election integrity, because if you do anything on election integrity, it makes them harder for them to steal elections, and their business is stealing elections. What do you think? You've got the Save America Act kind of in limbo. It may be attached to this, attached to that, attached to the other thing, but it's in limbo right now. What's your recommendation to the president of what needs to be done given what has been released and what you know from your work for 6 years in Georgia, what needs to be done to secure elections this November in the great state of Georgia, sir?
Well, passing the SAVE Act would be a first step, and that would be to get rid of the crazy filibuster thing they got. But there's so much more that has to be done. There is, you've got to basically put in incredible controls in for the voter rolls. We are not going to be able to patch machines and expect that they're going to be secure. That's another issue. The simple solution to the whole thing is just basically publicly recorded hand counts and hand-marked paper ballots. And then we're going to have to dive into the voter roll issue and get that cleaned up before the 2026 election.
So so we're burning daylight. I think we're 100 days out, roughly 100 days out from actually game day, voting day. But there's certain states that are going to start voting in late September. So we're within 60 days. I think it's the 20th of September. We're 60 days away from people start voting. What is your recommendation? Because we are beyond burning daylight. Even if you did, and there's discussion out there that, hey, they're going to go to August break, and when they come back, they're going to have some solution for the Save America Act, and they'll debate it. They're not back until, I think, September 14th. So they'll debate it when they get back. That's just not going to wash because you can't implement after it's debated, even if it was to pass. What is your recommendation to the president, what he needs to do today to make sure that we are secure in November, sir?
Well, I think it is. We're looking at a national security declaration. I think we can't get Congress to do the appropriate things, then maybe the president's going to have to do it himself. So Executive Order 14399 is critical to help solving that mail-in ballot problem. We can publicly record hand counts and hand-marked paper ballots to solve the machine problem. So those would be the two of the major things that we would have to get done. And unfortunately, it looks like Congress is just going to wash their hands of it and leave it to the president to do.
Do you think the FBI or certain elements of the deep state, although FBI run by Kash Patel and the CIA run by Ratcliffe, and we got at least Pulte over temporarily in DNI, that is someone slow walking the situation in Fulton County? I mean, it was a couple of months ago. We had this they went and grabbed the ballots finally. So we got the evidence, we got the receipts. We went to court. The left came down with the biggest, heaviest hitters legally they could find. They got defeated. We've won that. But I noticed there's no announcement of what's going on there. And that rat's nest in Fulton County, can you really sort out Georgia until you sort out the rat's nest that is Fulton County, sir?
Well, great point. That is the rat's nest, and that is Fulton County. I haven't heard from the FBI yet. We were expecting to be contacted by now, but we have not. But it is a complicated situation. They have moved on it. Got to give them credit for that. We're expecting indictments coming. They finished up on Friday the initial evaluation, I'm sure, of the documents. I'm sure they have to aggregate all that information, and that might take a couple of weeks. So we're hoping to see something really significant come out of it.
How could they go to indictments if they haven't interviewed? You guys have been laboring at this for years. You know more, but you've forgotten more than most people know. How could they move forward if they haven't interviewed you and the folks that work with you?
Well, they have interviewed quite a few folks that work with, our volunteers that have volunteered for Voter GA. They've interviewed quite a few of them. I was very encouraged by that affidavit of probable cause. It had 5 areas of evidence, all of which we had helped supply indirectly. Apparently they are definitely reading and watching our information. So that's all good news. And we're just thrilled that they are moving. It is a slow process, and I'm just going to assume that we got to go on the president's timing.
Okay, Garland, where do people go to get more information, to read your press release that uses the T word and to know everything they can know about the vote down in Georgia, sir?
It's voterga.org, and thank you, Steve, for having us. We really appreciate the Warren Posse. They've helped us out a whole bunch because we are volunteers, and all the donations are tax deductible, and we sure appreciate it.
No, you're fighting the good fight, sir. Thank you, Garland Favorito.
Thank you, Steve.
I want to thank the sponsors we have, particularly the folks, Glenn and Jenny's Story, 2 of the best. Talk about grassroots and grassroots. So the state of Texas Patriot Mobile, 972-PATRIOT. Call and talk to someone with the East Texas accent about the best phone service in the world.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Patriot Mobile, those teams, we're going to be taking the show to Texas, back to Texas. We're going to go to a bunch of the battleground states as we move around. Have meetings with grassroots leaders and make sure that people are as pumped up as you get. I definitely think there needs to be some policy initiatives here. And no, a CR, because all they're panicked about is their money. They got to get a CR because they don't want to shut down the government prior to the election. Why not? You get more people out there, you get more people motivated. Government shutdowns help us. They don't hurt us, they help us. If you stick to your guns. So Patriot Mobile, 972-PATRIOT. If you feel like having a prayer session, call them up and do that. People with East Texas accents, it's the call center. They know all about the services and the products, all the specials. You got 1 month free if you tell them you're part of the War Room Posse. If you shift, or I guess the term is switch, but it's a great phone service, the best, with a company that backs your play, backs your values. Same with the folks at Birch Gold. We had a very blunt conversation on Saturday. Maybe I break that down and comment on it about when a nation reaches, GDP or total, total output, you reach total debt, equating that and go over. You don't return from that. The finances of the country, and I think that's part of the thing with this war. And the reconciliations are coming up, and the CRs, all of it. Right now, the whole burden's on the American people. The whole burden's on the American taxpayer. Well, that burden's got to be shared. The Saudis and UAE and these guys are all filthy rich. They're among the richest families in the world. All the monarchies that control the Gulf Emirates, from Kuwait and Bahrain and Qatar and UAE, all of it. And they got to write a check, big check. American people just can't pay for this. The Israelis got to write a check. Money should be coming this way, not that way. They're a wealthy nation. They got health care. They got free college. Do you have that? No, you don't. People in Europe got it. Israel got it. Why do they have it? Because you're picking up the defense tab. It's a sucker's play. It's time for other people to burden share before we extract ourselves, which we have to do, because it's a sideshow to the vital national security interests of the United States. And this is why Hormuz, where's the World Navy? Where is the French Navy? Where is the Italian Navy? Right? Where are these navies of the world, particularly in NATO? Keeping Hormuz open, keeping the Red Sea open, the sea lanes into the Suez Canal. That's all for Europe and Asia. Where are they? The United States, and Rubio finally said that we're not the policemen of the world. We can't afford it. This is one of the reasons, one of the many reasons for $40 trillion in debt. And that's just the on-the-books face amount of the on-the-books liability. You talk about contingent liabilities, and we can make, with Social Security going broke with contingent liabilities. I mean, people, very learned people in economics that are mathematicians, make the case that there's $100 trillion or more net present value of obligations that are predicated upon the dollar. This is why we do the dollar empire, to let you understand how central to this whole operation the U.S. dollar is, and the weight on the U.S. dollar. Go to Birch Gold today, get it, End of the Dollar Empire. Check that out. Also, you can talk to them about their 401ks, IRAs, all these tax-deferred ways you can get into physical gold. And I'd recommend you talk to Philip Patry Day. That was a quite enlightening and very scary conversation we had on Saturday. I think I'll break that down maybe in the 6 o'clock hour sometime this week. Rosemary Jenks, thank you, by the way. So you had the mass deportation, I think, state-level meetings that came together on Thursday, you and Mike Howe and others. Talk to me about what's the takeaway we should have of the mass deportation coalition when you got your state leaders to Washington, D.C. last week?
So first, I just want to say that it was a fantastic event. We had former Congressman Tom Tancredo and Congressman Steve King, two of the OGs of immigration reform, talk to the state leaders and join us on the cruise. It was wonderful to see so many young people who care deeply about this country and how we save it. And of course, how we save it starts with mass deportations. You know, whether you care about election integrity and non-citizens voting, mass deportations, birthright citizenship, mass deportation, housing prices, healthcare affordability, all of that involves mass deportations. So it was just a phenomenal event that, I mean, Mike Howell, bless him and his team, they did a great job on this. It was great. These young people are engaged, they're fired up, and we are demanding action from the administration. We actually have a markup on Tuesday, tomorrow, for the border security bill in the House Judiciary Committee. This is the bill that was HR 2 in the last Congress. It closes the loopholes that Biden exploited to let in millions and millions of illegal aliens so that a future administration can't do that again. So we are looking forward to that markup, and we will be making our voices heard.
The DHS secretary gave a press conference, or gave a presentation at the press conference on Friday after the president's speech. Now, the vast majority of that was to talk about election integrity and things, action items they're taking that they already, under their purview, have the mandate to do. And he was often running with a bunch of initiatives. But I think it was in the Q&A, there were obviously questions asked about ICE, because this is all the media obsesses about. I think he said we've deported 3.2 million people in the first 15 months. I keep getting a different number from you and Mike Howell. So what's your number? And then what do you think about Mullins's number?
So we don't have a number because they haven't released the official data. What they're doing is combining, to get that 3.2 million, they're combining ICE deportations, which are actual real deportations from the interior of the country, plus Border Patrol returns, which are not deportations, plus supposedly self-deportations, which they're basing off a Census Bureau analysis that many foreign-born, including all the deportations, have left the country. So they're combining a bunch of numbers, and they're counting some of them 2 or 3 times. So we don't know what the actual deportation number is. We estimate that there were probably around 325,000 deportations in President Trump's first year, 2025. We don't know what the number is now. And, you know, we keep being told that it's going up and we're doing mass deportations. Well, release the numbers. Let's have some transparency. You know, we can only assume that they don't want to.
Have you reached out to his office to say, hey, we want to sit down and just go through your math and make sure we understand it, because that would make it more powerful. That's what messaging is all about. This is what a surrogates program is all about, is to bring in a traditional surrogates program. Yo, White House Communications Department, take out number 2 pencil and let's write this down. A traditional surrogates program takes experts like yourselves, not just influencers. People actually know what they're talking about. You come in, they explain to you, and then you can go out and spread that message far and wide as the gospel truth, because people like you have reputations that, hey, this is the numbers. People buy into that. Have you reached out? Have you guys reached out to DHS to sit down and have that briefing?
We have been begging for these numbers. We have talked to top DHS officials. We have asked them for the numbers. We've actually been told in one situation, and I won't name names here, but we have been told specifically that these top officials are not authorized to release the actual numbers. Now, that tells me they're hiding something. If they're not hiding something, release the numbers. This is, you know, we need these numbers. The public deserves to know what all of this money is being spent for. You know, we just gave billions and billions of dollars to ICE, and we're happy for that. We supported that, and we want to cheerlead for ICE and for the Trump administration, but we need the numbers in order to do that.
Okay. Have you reached out to Stephen Miller's office? You reach out to Stephen? Because I'm going to send this clip to him. So have you reached out to Stephen?
I have not on this stuff. We've been talking to DHS officials on this, and I know
why is
Mike
that? 'Cause
Howell.
you want to take it up the chain of command. You don't feel like bugging the White House, or what? Do you think he's aware of this issue?
I'm sure he is. I mean, I think Stephen Miller has his finger on the pulse of all of these issues. I have no doubt of that. But it's the Department of Homeland Security's responsibility to put these numbers out. They used to do this on a regular basis, and they have not done it. And, we need to know why.
What do you think?
I think the numbers aren't as good as they want them to be. I mean, that's really the only conclusion we can get to. And part of the problem is if you're targeting the worst of the worst, which that's what has been the plan so far, then that's going to require a lot of resources for a smaller number of people. Whereas if you're doing worksite enforcement, you're getting much larger numbers for, the same kind of resources.
Okay.
You're not going out and tracking people down individually in communities. So that's what we need to see.
I think we're going to the wrong direction. We'll talk about it. If you can stick around, it's not the agriculture bill, but it is a bill that's been put up. It's probably a messaging bill, but I believe it has 41 Republicans supporting it. So it's about giving amnesty to agricultural workers. So I'm not so sure we're actually I'm not sure we're heading in the right direction. Anyway, stick around. allfamilypharmacy.com/Bannon. Bannon 10, you get 10% off. Now, you do not have medical freedom totally unless you break the hold that the drugstore distribution companies and the drugstores themselves have upon you. allfamilypharmacy.com/Bannon. You get to talk to Michael Kunstler and his team about true medical freedom and getting the medications you need today.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
So, Rosemary, so we'll take care of the issue. Talk to me about first off. Let's deal with this quickly. A bunch of reporting this morning that the FBI has announced that they're not going to follow up or investigate any of the attack on ICE officers by these Marxist jihadists in New York City or in Minneapolis, in Texas or in California or anywhere in the States. Any truth to that?
Not as far as I'm aware. The Department of Homeland Security has already come out and said that that is absolutely false. I cannot imagine that the FBI under President Trump would ignore those kinds of attacks. I can't imagine any FBI would ignore those kinds of attacks. They're obviously criminal and they need to be prosecuted. I'm sure that
there's clearly voices. The reporting was based upon anonymous sources in the FBI. There are clearly elements of the FBI that wants out of that. You would agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are always subversive voices within a government agency. I have no doubt that those exist within the FBI, but the fact that they're anonymous should tell us a lot of what we need to know. If this is real, then somebody willing to put their name behind it would say it.
Let's go to what is about this? It's going viral right now about this issue of a farm bill that's coming up that argues for or grants amnesty for farm workers. Can we get the tweet up on this? What is going on here, ma'am?
Yeah, so it's not actually what we call the farm bill. It's not the, agricultural policy bill. This is a separate piece of legislation that was introduced by Congressman Glenn Thompson from Pennsylvania, who is the chairman of the Agriculture Committee. And it is straight up an amnesty bill. It gives amnesty H-2A visas to basically any illegal alien who can claim to have worked in agriculture for, at least 6 months of the last 2 years. And we've already done this, Steve. We did this in 1986, specifically with agricultural amnesty. And the degree of fraud in that program exceeds anything we've ever seen in any government program. So, I mean, why you would expect a different result with this it's ludicrous. The fraud would be massive. And in fact, in 1986, when we did this, we actually gave amnesty to a terrorist, one of the terrorists who bombed the World Trade Center. So, this is absurd. This is a group of, it's actually 48 Republican co-sponsors plus 4 Democrats now. These Republicans have been bought and sold by their big ag donors. That's the bottom line. This is about big corporate agriculture getting the cheapest labor they possibly can. And by the way, the bill actually artificially suppresses agricultural wages, which are already, in the dirt, pun intended. So it's insane. They expand the H-2A program so that it essentially allows foreign workers to take over multiple entire industries in this country, including meat packing and dairy. They expand it from temporary and seasonal to year-round. And it's just ridiculous. These are people who are not reading the room signing on to this bill. And, this is how Republicans lose elections, by doing nonsense like this.
Exactly. Talk about there's a 10-point discrepancy or arbitrage or gap between Democratic enthusiasm and Republican. This is one of the reasons. No emphasis on mass deportations, and you've got the people on the Hill that are pushing anti-worker bills. Where do we go to keep up with you, Rosemary? We're going to have you back and break this thing down. I want people to see. I want to rub people's noses in what these bills look like to show you the hypocrisy of the Republican Party, because they run around talking about, oh yeah, we want to secure the border and send everybody home. It's just a total lie. This is what President Trump's up against. Where do people go?
Yeah, we're at iapaction.com, iapaction.com. You can see where your congressmen stand. And if you just type in that search bar at the top, Glenn Thompson, you'll find out about this agricultural amnesty bill and all the co-sponsors and what the bill does and all of that. We've got information on all the immigration bills that are introduced and the ranking of all 535 members of Congress. iapaction.com, and we could use the War Posse's support to keep doing all this.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate you. We'll send you over to your site. Great work.
Thank you.
Jack Posobiec, finally tracked down Jack Posobiec. Jack, I got a lot to go through, but I want to focus on this Heather Cox situation, since Heather Cox Richardson is one of the smartest people on the left or the mainstream media. She and Andrew Breitbart went at it for years. She's been around for a while, but she's quite bright. She's got a Substack out that I think is the most intelligent way that someone on the left is breaking down exactly how we're connecting dots. It's not these people running around the last couple of days, oh, they're communist everywhere. It's actually, we're trying to be a little more sophisticated in that and connecting many dots. But she does nail the fact that one of the anchors to this is your book, Unhumans. In fact, it's the reason the War Room, I think it was 2 years ago we published it, but it's 3 years ago that we started working on it with you. You had this idea of how to connect it all together because you could see downrange, given your great work on Antifa, and before that, the Occupy movement. You saw where this was going. So Mandami and what's happening in these cities is no surprise to you, since back in the days, you used to be out in the field all the time. I mean, you went to Minneapolis and your brother's everywhere, but you saw where this was heading. And and I want everybody to read this because she kind of nails how we're connecting dots. Jack Posobiec, the floor is yours, sir.
Steve, I want people to also understand, and thank you, who Heather Cox Richardson is in the ecosystem and the power structure and infrastructure of the left. This is the single most widely read Substack on the entire Substack platform. She's got 3 million subscribers and she's putting it out there. This is where MSNBC, this is the crib sheet for them. This is where they get their talking points from. This is where CNN gets the talking points from, the Washington Post, all the rest of it. They go to writers like this who have just a slightly higher IQ than your average mouth breather or mirror fogger over there. And so what do they have? They say, well, wait a minute. She goes, yesterday, Donald J. Trump, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Deputy White House Chief of Staff Stephen Miller all threw the weight of the U.S. government behind a far-right conspiracy that says that Trump and his loyalists are defending the United States of America against a communist takeover. And as Gil Duran recalled today, 2 years ago, far-right influencer Jack Posobiec and co-author Joshua Lysek wrote a best-selling book. By the way, New York Times best-selling book. See, she's already kind of shading the truth just a little bit. Called Unhumans: The Secret History of Communist Revolutions and How to Crush Them. Trump ally and media guru Steve Bannon wrote the introduction. Donald J. Trump blurbed it, and then Ohio Senator J.D. Vance also blurbed the book. Now, Steve, the point is that they're realizing that we're on to them. That's what the real issue is here. They're realizing, wait a minute, they've picked up on the fact that we haven't completed this communist takeover yet. We've been trying to take over New York. And by the way, the socialist takeover of New York is proceeding apace, replete with assassinations and now indiscriminate bombings of federal agents. Oh, wow, where have I heard that before? Can you talk about, I don't know, St. Petersburg or Beijing or Paris, France? You know, the list is long. And of course, we've got the entire thing, Madrid back in 1936 or so. So when we look at all of this, Steve, we're putting it together to say these things have all happened before. They follow a pattern, they follow a rhythm. We're seeing those patterns play out again. We're seeing those rhythms play out again. And we're seeing the separation from the establishment. And what you'll get is you'll get a MAGA populist movement on the right, and then you'll get the communist burn it all down movement on the left. That's the DSA, that's Mandami, and then the extreme edge of that is, of course, the Mangionis, the bombers, the assassins, the Tyler Robinsons, the people trying to shoot at Trump. So we see all of it put together. This is exactly what we would see if there were, in fact, a far left communist takeover. But of course, for Heather Cox Richardson, she's saying, oh, this is just some far right conspiracy. And just to give a little note on her again, she sat down with President Biden when he was the president. Even he gave an interview to her. So this is how important she is. And the fact that she's singling out this specific book that we put out 2 years ago here with the War Room, with your help, Steve Bannon, that shows to everyone how terrified they are that we have figured out exactly what they're up to. We have the playbook. And most importantly, the last chapter of the book is how you defeat them. That's why Unhumans, and of course, the posse rallied behind it in 2024. It became a New York Times bestseller. To their chagrin, they had to include it on the list. But Steve, the most important piece is it shows that hard work, putting shoulders to wheels and having that top-down effort from the FBI, from the national security standpoint, if you crack down and drop the hammer on these groups economically, Treasury, physically, of course, with national security, the joint terrorism task forces in all of the key cities around the country, this is how you smash them. This is how you disrupt their operations, and this is how you go after the financiers.
A central part of that is mass deportations, because that's they organize the invasion.
Well, that's how you get rid of the foot soldiers.
Yeah, I just want to go back. She's been battling like Andrew back 15 years ago. Her Substack is show prep for the Nicole Wallaces. It's show prep for Morning Joe. She's the most read, and she does things where she connects dots. That's where I think her power comes from. She doesn't throw up something for internet virality. The important point of Unhumans, because I say that and you see in communist revolutions, you have controlled opposition. The Republican Party to date, the official Republican Party, has been controlled opposition for the left. They have not wanted to get into the fight. This is one of the reasons they hated Trump. They don't want to brawl, and you've got to brawl here. Talk to me now. All of a sudden, Polly Pockets. In fact, I think Drudge had a link to it. That this is the Politico story the other day. This is the scare election. They're jumping on this and not understanding how systemic it is, how powerful it is, how it's organized. And this is truly a Marxist jihadist revolution in this country. The last thing we need is a bunch of half-wit Republicans like Speaker Johnson jumping on this all, at the last second, because they got nothing else to run on, because they haven't done the work and support the president for the MAGA agenda. So what you're going to have here is the worst of both worlds. Jack Posobiec.
Well, Steve, the president of the United States gave everyone marching orders, I would say, in his speeches, both at, let's not forget his incredible speech at Mount Rushmore on the eve of the 250th anniversary, where he declared openly the United States of America will never become a Marxist communist nation. Our country was founded on the ideals of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Theirs are for death evil, and destruction. That is what Marxism stands for. And he's exactly right, Steve, because we called them out from the very start of the book. Everything they preach about equality, everything they preach with justice, that is all window dressing. That's just marketing. What do they want? They want to tear down everything. They want to destroy everyone in their way. They want to go after their class enemies. They want to go after, in this case, gender and race enemies. And by the way, this is why I exactly knew which button to press when I confronted Mandami himself to his face in the Oval Office. And I said, sir, didn't your administration say that you were going to target white neighborhoods and tax them on the basis of race? And he said, oh, no, that was just a descriptor. Yeah, but it was a racial descriptor. It wasn't in terms of their income or in terms of their net wealth or even that. You specifically said race. And again, Steve, this is straight from the Marxist playbook. And what did Mandami do then on July 4th? He gave the most anti-American speech I have ever seen. But Steve, this is always their playbook. That's what it's all about. New York City is the test case for what they want to do to the rest of the country.
He tried to pre-butt President Trump's speech later that night from sitting back at the desk of George Washington. Jack, hang on for 1 second. Short commercial break. Poso on the other side.
We rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the CCP.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
So Heather Cox Richardson, we're going to get it out through everybody here at the War Room to make sure you're a force multiplier today. Please read this. It's a very good piece that connects a lot of dots. And you see, this is why we start the cold opens in the morning. You have to see in information warfare. Your enemy gets a vote, and you have to see where they're coming from. Jack, I know you got to bounce, and because I do want to have you on later in the week to talk about the situation with the war and also the disclosures of President Trump on Thursday night. But going back to Unhumans, Heather Cox Richardson brings out a very important point about the book. You are, I think, the only person, one of the reasons I'd love the War Room to step in and publish this and work with you on this book. You make a very compelling argument about Franco. And Franco is actually a hero when he's demonized by the left for the Lincoln Brigades and, the Spanish Civil War, all of it. What did you mean by that, sir?
Steve, we tell the story of the Spanish Civil War, I think, in a way that most audiences in the English-speaking world have never heard before. And I traveled to Spain with Tanya Tay. I visited the Monument to the Fallen. I visited all over Madrid. I met with people and told the story from the perspective of, and by the way, we don't whitewash or cover up anything in the book. We are very clear about what was going on. It was a civil war, but it was a civil war where the atrocities were done initially by the communists. We talk about the priests who were being murdered and rounded up in their own churches. We talk about the nuns who were being raped on altars, had their bodies defiled, and then they had the bodies nailed to the wall in the courtyard of town square so people could walk up as their bodies were lying desiccated in the square to know this is what happens to the followers of God. So if you are a Christian, if you are a follower, if you're a religious woman, they are coming for you. And that's what they did, Steve. They unleashed these red brigades, the Rojas, all over Spain. And then yes, the Spanish military, because remember, prior to this, Spain had always been a monarchy. The Spanish military said, you know what, we're not doing this anymore. We are restoring the monarchy. And what else did they do, Steve? By the way, when the Soviets came in 1936, they looted the entire treasury of Spain and sent all of the Spanish gold back to Moscow. That's who these people are, Steve. They are criminals. They are thugs. They are rapists. That is what they've done. And this is what they do every single time. And the reason they hate so much when you bring up Spain is because that's the one they lost. That's the one that got away from them. That's the one where they couldn't take Spain over in their Spanish communist revolution. Now, by the way, the communists in Spain are doing pretty well right now over there if you go look politically. And yeah, okay, they won the World Cup last night. But when you look at what's actually happening on the ground, the Spanish economy is in shambles. The Spanish military is nothing to speak of. I don't know. Maybe perhaps they could use a little bit of that former formidable Spanish strength once again.
It's a Marxist jihadist revolution. That's why they're allowing unlimited migration coming in from North Africa. We got to bounce. Where do people get Unhumans? wanted to take a shot at this,
Oh,
where do they go to get it?
Yeah, go and get Unhumans wherever books are sold. Of course, Amazon has it. If you go to unhumansbook.com, you can get an autographed copy. All of the political prisoner copies are actually sold out. That was the ones that Stephen K. Bannon and myself joint signed before Stephen K. Bannon became a member of the Gulag. I mean, it's like the book was coming true even as we were putting it out, because the day the book came out, I think, is when you reported up
Yes.
there in Connecticut. And
It's
and then
unbelievable.
unfortunately, about 2 weeks later is when the first assassination attempt on Trump took place. And so I hate being right about this, but it's just, we have called the shot. This is clearly what they're doing, and they are terrified that we have found them out.
In the assassination of Charlie Kirk. By the way, Franco kept Spain out of World War II. It's one of Spain was not destroyed like the other cities, those beautiful cities in Spain. Jack, your Getter and your Twitter feed, you're the AP, Associated Press of MAGA. Where they go?
And of course, we're up at, of course, X at Jack Posobiec, True Social, Telegram, Getter, and Instagram. Instagram is growing yet again, so check out the Instagram at Jack Posobiec.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Viva Cristo
Good
Rey.
trip. Amen. The Mexican Civil War, Mexican Revolution, also pretty bad. Karen Siegemund, you've got an event coming up. I want every person in the greater Los Angeles area, in the Southland, and maybe even Arizona and Nevada to know about this, and they get a ticket if they're still available. What do you got?
Yeah, thanks so much, Steve. We've got on the 22nd, which is coming up on Wednesday, our the American Freedom Alliance's 250th celebration of the country, featuring Eric Metaxas, which is just wildly exciting. His book is, of course, brilliant, as you know, deeply moving, and tells the story of the exceptional nature of this exceptional nation. We also have, very briefly, Frank Gaffney, Dr. Brad Thayer, and Trevor Loudon will be speaking, as well as Suzanne Reto. She had fled Hungary. So these people who have been in the fight for all these decades, but they're talking very briefly about their reflections about why we fight. The left has been so demoralizing. Part of their long march through the institutions is undermining our civilizational confidence, and this event is intended to boost that. So go to the American Freedom Alliance, AmericanFreedomAlliance.org for tickets, and if you use the coupon code Bannon, you will get a discount. So if you go to AmericanFreedomAlliance.org, scroll down a little bit, you'll see a link to register for the event this Wednesday in Los Angeles. So please come if you're anywhere in the area. We've got people literally coming from around the world for this event. So if you're part of the posse, please join us. It's going to be tremendous.
Let's hit it. Trevor Comstock, what do you got for us this morning, sir?
Hey, Steve, great to see you. So I wanted to mention that we are currently running a sale this week for our tallow moisturizer, as well as our sacred healing salve. So if you did want to take advantage of it, you can use code SKIN at checkout for 20% off any one-time order on those two products. And of course, for anyone that doesn't know, what's amazing about the tallow moisturizer is that it is handmade with the two ingredients, which is the 100% American grass-fed and finished beef tallow, and then the raw Manuka honey from New Zealand. So that's it. No preservatives, chemicals, or anything like that. Yep.
Where do folks go right now? Where do they go right now to check the reviews, the price, all the information? Where do they go?
Yeah, you can go to sacredhumanhealth.com. And like I mentioned, you can use code SKIN for 20% off the tallow moisturizer and the sacred healing salve.
Brother, thank you so much. 20% off. Hit the bid today. The Charlie Kirk Show is next. Poso, I think, still doing a show. They're traveling. We're back at 5 o'clock, 5 to 7 tonight. Stick around. We'll be back in the war room.